Reporting work health and safety matters, formal versus informal and verbal versus written. So it is extremely important that potential hazards and incidents within a workplace are reported to the appropriate members of authority, as they will not be able to be investigated or acted upon appropriately if key bodies do not know they occurred. So as I'm working in my workplace environment and I see something that looks dangerous, unless I tell anyone, no one other than myself is going to know that that issue could cause harm. So I've got a duty to do that so that it gets acted upon, as well as to protect my fellow employees who might not have noticed that dangerous scenario yet. So if I don't report it, as a result, the hazard will continue to exist and still have potential to harm workers within their workplace. So what we're going to look at now, firstly, is that of formal and informal reporting. So firstly, informal reporting is if the hazard has been identified, and I might just go tell my manager and say, you know what, that looks dangerous. So this is a form of informal reporting because essentially there's no real documentation reported of me telling my manager that. I can't really prove that I told my manager that. It's just me actually telling them, oh, this could be an issue. My manager could very well forget that, okay, because they're doing 10 other tasks at a time, okay, but there is nothing for them to refer back to. So informal reporting is when there's no documentation of the report being made. It's usually just in passing or being spoken to, okay, in a verbal manner. That brings us then to the opposite side of this, which is that of formal reporting. This is a situation where the risk associated with the hazard might be very high. And because of that, and because it has the potential to cause danger in the workplace, we need to formally report this. This would involve filling out documentation in order to create a paper trail, which could then be used as evidence, okay, if the hazard does continue to go on, and say, this is when it was reported, this is what action took place, and potentially justify if action hasn't taken place. So formal reporting means that there is documentation which can be used as evidence or can be reviewed at a later date for future planning purposes. Now, stemming on from this then is how we actually do the reporting, whether that be verbal or written. So in the first instance, that of verbal means when we're just speaking the information. As we said with informal reporting, it is mostly informal if I just tell someone because there is no documentation of that taking place. Though that's not always true because there are some situations where if I do speak in these scenarios, it is being documented, such as in a meeting, what I say might be recorded in the meeting minutes, or if I'm using software and talking over a video conference or over the phone, it might be very well be said based on that context that the actual video it's being recorded so that they can refer back to it, which would make that verbal communication formal. As I've already alluded to a few of the actual ways verbal reporting can take place, here are some of the methods. So, firstly, is face to face. So, when I'm just speaking with someone face to face or to a group of individuals face to face, can take place over the phone. Okay, and it's informal if we're just talking and I'm just raising the issue. Though they might say right at the beginning of the conversation, this phone call will be recorded. Okay, in order to ensure that the matter that I'm bringing up is documented. Okay, it can also happen within a meeting, as I said, and be recorded in a meeting's minutes. Okay, or can be using conferencing software. These days, there's a lot of video conferencing taking place, and I might report the hazard within that context. Okay, so they are all methods of verbally reporting health and safety matters. For the written area, most written forms of reporting would be considered formal reporting, as the written documentation, whether it be physically on paper or digitally using computing systems, can be filed and referred to again later at future times. Okay, this means we can refer back to it if we might be building a case or seeing what's being done about a particular hazard. The paper trail is there, and that's what makes it formal. So methods of doing this include emailing managers, supervisors, the HSR, the PCBU. Okay, we can retrace the emails. The emails get timestamped at the dates that was sent, and we can refer back to them at a later date to see if a hazard's been followed up on. Could be filling in incident reports, okay, where an incident has taken place. We've documented what happened in that incident, and then we've filed it away for a later date. Or also these days, there's issue tracking systems, okay, which is software stored on computers, okay, or on some sort of network makeup where we can bring up and say a hazard that we see in our environment, and we can raise it with management, and then management can add to the system and say what they're doing about or how they're addressing that hazard, and the person who reported can actually see the follow-up on that from their end on the report that they made. So I hope this video has given you an understanding of reporting in relation to health and safety matters, essentially that we can reform in both informal and formal means, and really the foundation of that is there documentation that is evidence that I made that report. And then the way we do that is through either a verbal or written means. Okay, verbally is what I said and how I spoke it to someone in order to report, or written, what documentation did I use to actually write the report in order to make that report about the health and safety matter.